I wasn't cutting anyone off. I was already waiting here.
I know what I saw. You can't just ignore me.
Please stop yelling at me.
I have the right to call her out.
This isn't fair. You're pointing a finger at me for no reason.
The fluorescent hum of the grocery store lights often masks the quiet anxieties of everyday life, a mundane backdrop for the extraordinary. But on one crisp autumn evening in Maplewood, Ohio, those anxieties flared into a public spectacle, caught on camera, and laid bare the insidious undercurrents of bias that persist in our society. It was 7:37 p.m. when Officer David Miller, badge number 412, arrived at the Maplewood Fresh Foods. His presence, ostensibly to de-escalate the situation, instead became its accelerant. Officer Miller was no stranger to controversy. His internal affairs file, already thick, contained 11 formal complaints against him. 11, a number that should have raised alarms long before this moment. The woman at the center of the dispute was Dr. Anya Sharma, a respected educator, a pillar of her community, and a black woman simply trying to complete her weekly shopping. Her credentials, earned through years of dedication and academic excellence, meant nothing in the face of an unverified accusation and an officer's preconceived notions. The treatment she received that night was a stark reminder that for some, perceived authority trumps actual achievement, and skin color can still dictate the terms of engagement. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments below. Your engagement helps us bring more stories like this to light. Stories that demand our attention and our collective outrage. Maplewood, Ohio, typically boasts the quiet charm of a quintessential American suburb. Tree-lined streets, well-maintained parks, and a strong sense of community pride define its public image. But beneath that placid surface, like in so many towns, simmered the unspoken tensions of a rapidly diversifying population grappling with its own history. On that particular Thursday, October 17th, a cool front had swept through, bringing with it a biting wind and a sky the color of bruised plums. The air was thick with the scent of fallen leaves and the distant promise of winter. Inside Maplewood Fresh Foods, however, it was brightly lit, a sanctuary of consumerism, oblivious to the gathering storm outside and the brewing storm within its aisles. Dr. Anya Sharma had dedicated her life to shaping young minds. A distinguished professor of history at Maplewood High School, she held a Ph.D. from Ohio State University, specializing in American civil rights. Her classroom was a vibrant forum for critical thought, her students consistently achieving top marks, and her colleagues respected her as much for her intellectual rigor as for her compassionate mentorship. She had received the district's Teacher of the Year award twice and served as the head of the Social Studies Department for the past 5 years. Dr. Sharma had earned her position, her accolades, and the profound respect of her community through decades of unwavering commitment to education and social justice. She was a homeowner, a taxpayer, a voter, and a model citizen in every conceivable metric. Officer David Miller, on the other hand, had a professional record that painted a troubling picture. His 11 formal complaints were not mere administrative oversights. They were documented instances of concerning behavior. In 2018, he faced a complaint for excessive force during a routine traffic stop, where an unarmed motorist received a broken arm. Internal affairs records show he was given a verbal warning. In 2019, a complaint for racial profiling was filed after he disproportionately stopped and searched vehicles driven by minority individuals in a predominantly white neighborhood. The outcome was a mandatory diversity training module. Just 6 months prior to the incident with Dr. Sharma, in April 2023, he was cited for unprofessional conduct after using derogatory language toward a homeless man seeking shelter, resulting in a 1-day suspension. The pattern was clear: a recurring disregard for protocol, a tendency toward aggressive escalation, and a demonstrable lack of accountability that had been allowed to fester within the Maplewood Police Department. These were not isolated incidents. They were a systemic failure to address a clear and present danger to public trust and safety. The community's quiet concerns about Officer Miller had been dismissed for too long, paving the way for the events of that fateful evening. The call came into dispatch at precisely 7:28 p.m. The caller, identified as Sarah Jenkins, a frequent shopper known to store staff for her often demanding demeanor, reported a suspicious person in the organic produce aisle. She described a black woman, loitering, looking shifty, and possibly attempting to conceal items in her oversized purse. She added with a dismissive tone, "She doesn't look like she belongs here." The dispatch operator, following standard protocol, relayed the call as a potential shoplifting in progress, without any independent verification of the caller's claims or any attempt to ascertain the actual activity of the suspicious person. Dr. Anya Sharma, utterly oblivious to the biased accusation being leveled against her, was doing nothing more than comparing organic kale prices. She held her phone, scrolling through a recipe for a new stir-fry, occasionally glancing up to examine the produce. Her large tote bag, a gift from her students, rested comfortably on her shoulder, containing her wallet, keys, and a stack of graded essays. She was focused, serene, and entirely within her rights to be there, like any other patron. Should officers be required to verify the legitimacy of complaint, especially one based on vague descriptions and racial undertones, before escalating to a full confrontation? Or should they treat every call, no matter how dubious, as a legitimate threat? Share your thoughts below. The confrontation began not with Officer Miller, but with Sarah Jenkins herself. "Excuse me," Jenkins snapped, stepping directly into Dr. Sharma's personal space, her voice sharp and accusatory. "Are you going to pay for that, or do you think you can just walk out with it?" Dr. Sharma, startled, turned to face her, a polite but firm expression on her face. "I'm sorry, do I know you?" she asked, her voice calm. "I'm simply shopping, like everyone else." Jenkins scoffed. "Oh, I'm sure you are. I've seen your type before. Always looking for an easy score." Dr. Sharma's composure began to fray. "My type?" she repeated, a cold edge entering her voice. "I am a paying customer, and I find your insinuation offensive." Just as Dr. Sharma was about to disengage and move away, Officer Miller appeared, his hand already resting on his sidearm, his gaze immediately fixed on Dr. Sharma. "Ma'am, step away from the produce." "Is there a problem here?" he demanded, his tone immediately confrontational, without addressing Jenkins. Jenkins, emboldened, immediately pointed at Dr. Sharma. "Officer, she's been acting suspicious. I think she's trying to steal something." Dr. Sharma, incredulous, turned to Miller. "Officer, this is absurd. I'm Dr. Anya Sharma, a teacher at Maplewood High. I'm doing my grocery shopping." She reached for her wallet, intending to show him her driver's license and school ID. Miller cut her off, his voice clipped. "Put your hands where I can see them, ma'am. Don't reach for anything." His command was sharp, his posture aggressive. "Anyone can fake that," he added, dismissing her attempt to provide identification before she even had a chance. The accusation hung heavy in, the air loaded with implications. A small crowd of shoppers had begun to gather, their murmurs growing louder, their cell phones subtly raised. Some recognized Dr. Sharma, their faces etched with disbelief and concern. One woman, a former student of Dr. Sharma's, stepped forward slightly. "That's Dr. Sharma. She's a teacher." Officer Miller ignored her, his focus solely on Dr. Sharma, whose hands were now raised in a gesture of frustrated compliance. He began to question her about her presence, her purchases, her bag, his voice escalating with each unanswered question, each attempt by Dr. Sharma to explain. It was at this critical juncture, as the tension reached a fever pitch, that Sergeant Elena Rodriguez, Miller's direct supervisor, arrived. She had been on patrol nearby and heard the increasingly agitated chatter over her radio. Her eyes immediately assessed the scene. Miller, aggressive and unyielding. Dr. Sharma, dignified but clearly distressed. Sarah Jenkins, smirking in the background, and a growing, visibly disturbed crowd. Without hesitation, Sergeant Rodriguez stepped between Miller and Dr. Sharma. "Officer Miller," she commanded, her voice firm and authoritative, cutting through the noise. "Step back. Give me your badge and weapon. Now!" The order was delivered with an unyielding certainty, signaling an immediate and unequivocal intervention. The air crackled with a sudden shift in power dynamics. The immediate aftermath was swift, though the emotional damage had already been done. Sergeant Rodriguez, after a brief, tense exchange with Officer Miller, secured his badge and service weapon, placing him on administrative leave effective immediately. She then turned to Dr. Sharma, her demeanor one of profound apology and concern. Dr. Sharma, still reeling from the shock and humiliation, was visibly shaken but maintained her composure. Sergeant Rodriguez quickly verified Dr. Sharma's identity, spoke with several witnesses who corroborated Dr. Sharma's account, and personally escorted her to her car, offering a heartfelt apology on behalf of the department. The Bodycam footage, which had captured every harrowing second of the encounter, was immediately secured as evidence. Sarah Jenkins, the initial caller, was issued a citation for filing a false police report and for disturbing the peace, though the weight of that action felt small compared to the trauma inflicted. This incident, fueled by racial bias and unchecked authority, begs a critical question. In cases where an officer's actions are clearly discriminatory and violate an individual's civil rights, should automatic termination be the standard protocol? Or do we continue with internal reviews that often fail to hold officers truly accountable? Join the conversation in the comments below. The Bodycam footage, obtained and released by Dr. Sharma's legal team less than 48 hours after the incident, exploded across social media. Within hours, the clip, titled "Karen Yells at Black Teacher in Grocery Store," had garnered millions of views across YouTube, Twitter, and TikTok. The hashtag Justice for Dr. Sharma trended worldwide, eclipsing other news stories. The incident became a flashpoint, igniting outrage and condemnation from across the nation and beyond. Local news channels ran continuous coverage, national networks picked up the story, and civil rights organizations issued scathing condemnations of the Maplewood Police Department. The institutional responses were immediate and varied. The Maplewood City Council held an emergency session, inundated with calls and emails demanding accountability. Police Chief Thompson, facing immense public pressure, issued a statement condemning Officer Miller's actions and announcing a full internal investigation. Mayor Jenkins, no relation to Sarah Jenkins, held a press conference expressing profound regret and promising comprehensive reforms. Dr. Sharma, represented by the renowned civil rights law firm Harmon & Associates, filed a federal lawsuit against Officer Miller, the Maplewood Police Department, and the city of Maplewood. The lawsuit alleged civil rights violations under the 4th and 14th Amendments, false arrest, assault, battery, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and negligence in the hiring, training, and supervision of Officer Miller. The complaint meticulously detailed his extensive history of complaints, arguing that the department was fully aware of his problematic conduct and failed to take adequate corrective measures, thereby creating a dangerous environment for the public. After intense negotiations and facing overwhelming evidence from the Bodycam footage and Officer Miller's disciplinary record, the city of Maplewood settled the lawsuit. Dr. Sharma was awarded a settlement of $3.5 million, the largest individual settlement in the city's history, for an incident involving police misconduct. The settlement was a stark acknowledgement of the egregious harm inflicted and the city's culpability. As for Officer Miller, the internal investigation concluded swiftly and decisively. His termination letter, issued just 3 weeks after the incident, was unequivocal. Your conduct on October 17, 2023, at Maplewood Fresh Foods constituted gross misconduct, a flagrant disregard for department policy, and a severe breach of the public trust. Your failure to uphold your oath, your discriminatory actions, and your pattern of unprofessional behavior render you unfit for service. He was not only terminated, but also decertified by the Ohio Peace Officer Training Commission, effectively ending his career in law enforcement in the state of Ohio and setting a precedent for accountability that many had long demanded. In a powerful press conference following the settlement announcement, Dr. Anya Sharma delivered a testimony that resonated deeply with the collective conscience. Her voice, calm yet unwavering, carried the weight of her experience and the broader implications it held. "If this can happen to me," she stated, her gaze steady, addressing the sea of cameras and reporters, "a tenured professor with 2 master's degrees and a PhD, someone who has dedicated her life to educating the youth of this very community, then it can happen to anyone. It can happen to a child, a grandparent, a neighbor." This wasn't about a misunderstanding. It was about an officer's unchecked bias, empowered by a system that allowed it to fester. My degrees, my accomplishments, my standing in this community, none of it shielded me from being seen as suspicious simply because of the color of my skin. This settlement is not just for me. It is a recognition of the systemic failures that allowed Officer Miller to operate with impunity for far too long. It is a demand for change, a demand for dignity, and a demand for true justice for all. Her words sparked a new wave of discussion. Should incidents of such clear racial bias and abuse of authority by law enforcement officers automatically trigger a federal investigation into the entire department, examining hiring practices, training protocols, and accountability mechanisms? Is local oversight sufficient, or are federal interventions necessary to dismantle systemic issues? Let us know your perspective in the comments. The Maplewood Police Department, under intense scrutiny and public pressure, released its own findings. The report acknowledged several systemic failures, including inadequate de-escalation training, a lack of robust implicit bias, training, and, critically, a flawed internal affairs process that had historically failed to adequately address and discipline officers with repeated complaints. The report highlighted a culture where minor infractions were often overlooked, allowing patterns of misconduct to emerge without significant intervention. In response, Chief Thompson announced a series of sweeping reforms. These included mandatory annual implicit bias training, a complete overhaul of the internal affairs review process with increased transparency, the implementation of a community oversight board with subpoena power, and an enhanced Bodycam policy, requiring immediate review of all footage involving citizen complaints. The department also committed to investing in de-escalation training programs developed in collaboration with community leaders and mental health professionals, signaling a long overdue shift towards community-centric policing. The case of Dr. Anya Sharma and Officer David Miller serves as a stark, undeniable illustration of how easily ingrained bias can override objective evidence, how quickly power can be abused, and how devastating the consequences are when accountability is deferred. This was not merely an isolated incident of a bad apple. It was a systemic failure that allowed an officer with documented history of misconduct to continue operating, his biases unchecked, until they manifested in a public act of humiliation and injustice against a respected citizen. The incident laid bare the fragility of trust between law enforcement and the communities they serve, particularly when that trust is eroded by racial profiling and a lack of transparency. Officer Miller's career was justly ended. The city paid a substantial price, and Dr. Sharma endured trauma no one should ever experience. But the real consequence, the lingering scar, is the doubt it casts on the promise of equal protection under law for everyone, regardless of their background or achievements. The question then becomes, what changes now? Beyond the headlines and the settlements, what tangible, lasting shifts will prevent another Dr. Sharma from facing such indignity? Should police departments be mandated to conduct regular, independent psychological evaluations for officers with a history of complaints, with the power to remove them from active duty, if deemed a risk? And what about a national standard for decertification? Ensuring officers fired for misconduct cannot simply move to another jurisdiction. We're not stopping our pursuit of justice and accountability. Your voice is crucial in this ongoing fight. Like, share, and subscribe if you believe in shedding light on systemic injustices. It's about Dr. Anya Sharma, yes, but it's also about all of us, about the kind of society we demand to live in, where dignity is universally upheld and justice is not just a promise, but a reality.